Okay, welcome to Sustainable Furnishings Council's Sustainability Essentials conversation for this Thursday, June 19th, 2014. As many of you know, we usually do this series by webinar. We are doing this one, though, as a live Google Plus Hangout on air with esteemed guests. Our topic today is driving change and creating value through wood sourcing. And we are very pleased to have with us Amy Smith of World Wildlife Fund, Bob Johnston of Tropical Forest Foundation, and Corey Brinkema of Forest Stewardship Council. And so we are going to be hearing from these experts today in conversation, and you can send in your questions for them, which I believe we will get through Google Chat. To start, however, I am going to tell you a little bit about Sustainable Furnishings Council, who we are, what we do, and why. Sustainable Furnishings Council was founded in October of 2006. We are a membership organization, a nonprofit, a coalition of companies involved in the industry in various ways, including suppliers of materials, manufacturers of products, stores where furnishings products are sold, interior designers that specify furnishings products, and importantly, international conservation organizations. World Wildlife Fund, Rainforest Alliance, founder of the U.S. Green Building Council, were instrumental in our beginning and remain very active with us now. When we formed over 7 years ago, our first task was to determine what are best practices for sustainability in the home furnishings industry, and then to set standards for recognizing exemplary implementation of those practices, and then to provide training to our member companies and to the industry at large to help companies implement more and more best practices, and of course to begin to drive more and more consumers to these companies that are implementing these best practices. We're proud to find ourselves recognized as the #1 green home furnishings organization now, and to have a robust membership. As I said, our members are involved in the industry in various ways. All of these companies have made their own commitment to sustainability, to transparency, and to continuous improvement. And we make it our business to support them in realizing their commitment. So we provide guidance, we provide resources, we provide education, we provide networking opportunities, and we provide marketing support for those companies that qualify. All our members that qualify use the member seal in all their marketing and advertising, and when they are implementing sufficient best practices, we invite them to earn exemplary recognition, which takes a little more work on their part. And when they achieve exemplary recognition, they get more marketing and promotional support from us as an organization. So we hope that consumers flock to do business with all our members, and especially notice those that we recognize as exemplary because they are implementing so many best practices. We as an organization are concerned about all the many issues that fall under this wide umbrella of sustainability. Sustainability is an umbrella term, and it covers lots of different things. We are concerned not only about preserving the ecosystems on our planet, but also about supporting the communities that depend on those ecosystems and supporting robust economies in those communities. That triple bottom line is what we are concerned about all in all. We tend to focus our work on those areas where we in the furnishings industry think we can make the biggest difference most immediately. So we do a lot of our work in areas of addressing problems of global warming and addressing problems of poor indoor air quality. As you know, global warming is being caused by a profusion of CO2 emissions. We are a global manufacturing industry in home furnishings, so we have a large responsibility for CO2 emissions that come from generating energy and from transporting goods. We also in our industry use an awful lot of wood, and we love the most beautiful wood the best. So we have a large responsibility for addressing problems of deforestation. And deforestation is a problem in much of our world. And the speakers who are with us today, today's experts, know a lot about addressing this problem of deforestation. And so we are delighted to have them with us to talk about what they do in their organizations, in their programs, and how we can best make use of resources they have available. So I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers. We have with us Amy Smith, who is with World Wildlife Fund's Global Forest Trade Network, and Bob Johnston, who is with the Tropical Forest Foundation, and Corey Brinkema, who is with Forest Stewardship Council. And I'm going to invite you all to tell us about your organization and what you do. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes each to start with, and we're going to start with you, Amy. So if you will, let's see, I'm going to make sure you're unmuted. It looks like you're still muted, Amy, so I'm unmuting you. You might have, there we go. Amy is unmuted. Hello, Amy.
And hey, Susan, thanks so much. Great to be here. And I work for World Wildlife Fund, WWF. Many of you may be familiar with the panda logo. And I work for a program of WWF. I'll be talking a little bit more about this program today. It's called the Global Forest and Trade Network. It's really part of WWF's efforts to halt illegal and unsustainable logging by promoting responsible forestry and trade. So we are working in 26 countries with this particular program. We're working at all levels of the wood and paper supply chain. We work with forest managers, manufacturers, retailers. We work with distributors. And we help them to eliminate any unknown or unwanted sources of wood in their supply chain and source credibly certified or recycled material and increase the amount of credibly certified and recycled material in their supply chain over time. And we do this through technical assistance and training. And I'll share some more with everyone about our work and how we can support the furnishings industry, the home furnishings industry with the program that we have in place. So thanks so much, and I'll hand it over to the next speaker.
Okay, Bob, let's have you introduce yourself next. And Bob, I believe you're unmuted and can now...
I'm with... Okay, I'm with the Tropical Forest Foundation, and we're best known for establishing training centers to teach sustainable forestry practices in the tropical regions of the world. And we're operating in South America and Asia, and we've done training programs in Africa as well. We look at wood purchases as a stair-step system, and the first thing is legality. and we need to be sure that there's a lot of it requires people with domestic or import. No, this has to be legal, and so that's a responsibility, and many people should have we think that the U.S. suppliers, if you want to supplier voluntarily, any questions for you?
Okay, we seem to be having a little bit of trouble with.
And many of them work with organizations like Corey's and
so I'm going to mute Bob now, and we're going to move to Corey for now, and we'll come back to you, Bob, but the sound went out. Corey?
Great. Well, hi, Susan. Thank you. It's great to be here with the Sustainable Furnishings Council, and yeah, happy to be here to talk a little bit about responsible wood sourcing. Again, my name is Corey Brinkema. I serve as the president of the U.S. Office of the Forest Stewardship Council. FSC is the global leader in setting standards and certifying responsible forest management around the world. We also have a set of standards and a certification for the supply chain, what we call chain of custody certification, to ensure that as FSC certified wood moves through the supply chain to customers, that that claim of responsible forest management is maintained through that chain of custody. We have over 400,000 acres now certified around the world. About 180 million of that is in North America. So we have a big presence here. The U.S. is a major both user and producer of wood products, and so we have a big responsibility, I think, to do things right and do right by forests and forest communities. We are presently now about 5% of the market for forest products here in the U.S., and that ranges everything from furnishings and furniture to paper and products like tissue and toilet paper, as well as building materials, plywood and lumber and other building material products. So we have a great range of FSC certified products today, and it's an exciting time. We think it's a great time to leverage this existing growth, which has been primarily leveraged through leadership of progressive companies, and we're now looking to move on to the next frontier, which is really introducing forest stewardship and responsible forest management to the end consumer, and try to sustain this growth for responsible wood.
Thank you. That really is a concern of all of us, is reaching that end consumer. And Amy, I think this might be a good time for you to talk about GFTN's program and how you help companies like retailers who are choosing product, and in some cases they're very involved in the manufacture of the product. But tell us about the very specific ways in which you all help companies.
Sure. Thanks, Susan. Well, just to kind of start at the beginning and to go back to why all of us on the panel today are talking about responsible forestry, I just wanted to highlight this report that WWF published back in 2012 called the Living Forest Report. And we did this analysis together with IASA, which is the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. And the goal of the study was to identify pathways to achieving and maintaining the goal of zero net deforestation and forest degradation, and at the same time be able to meet the world's needs for food, fuel, and fiber. So the analysis that the report summarizes, it looks at different global land use scenarios and calculates the effect of forces such as population growth and consumer demand, and describes possible consequences on areas of such as food production, climate change, biodiversity, commodity prices, and economic development. One of the really interesting findings of this analysis is that in addition to reducing wasteful consumption, to increasing production efficiencies, and sourcing wood from responsibly managed plantations that have been situated on degraded lands, we'll need to increase the area of forests, natural forests, that are logged responsibly. And this is a finding that some people have sometimes expressed some surprise that a global conservation organization is in favor of logging more forests responsibly, but that key is the responsible forest management, and that is really what will help to ensure that forests remain standing and that they provide economic value to the folks that depend on them. And sourcing responsible wood products, such as furniture, is another part of the equation, because that demand is what will drive the best practices in forest management. Like if consumers and retailers, if everyone in the chain is asking for responsible wood products, that's going to make sure that those forests are logged responsibly and continue to provide the ecosystem services and economic benefits.
Yes. And so I've seen very interesting maps of deforestation and they're probably in the report you're referring to, that show how much more forests are devastated when they are not protected by a certification that has the people near those forests benefiting from the responsible use of those forests. So that is indeed a very important point.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So that level, that is not actually included in that particular analysis, but there are certainly those studies that you refer to, Susan. So this this kind of analysis is really part of the support for the work that we do through the Global Forest and Trademark through GFTN. And as I mentioned, we're working at all different parts of the supply chain. So by offering technical assistance and training, we can help companies to understand what risks exist in their supply chain. And because we have staff in 26 countries on the ground, we can offer some real-time information on what some of those risks might be and how companies can address those risks. So if they're U.S. companies and they're sourcing from overseas, from a country that might be higher risk, we're not saying don't source from those places or don't source particular species, but we're saying that you have to ensure that those forests are being harvested legally and responsibly. That's a really important thing. And so we can offer companies that access to on the ground information, and also help them to engage with their suppliers. Their suppliers overseas can join our programs in places like Indonesia, Vietnam, China, where our staff can work closely with them in addressing any supply chain risk, any risk to their brand. So we're doing all of that, and the consumer piece is another thing that we're looking at, because it really has been, I think it's something that many companies that are in our program are really turning an eye to. How can we of consumers about the benefits of sourcing responsibly, and so we'll be putting some emphasis on that through our program here at GFTN with our partners.
Great, and we are just so pleased at the prospect of partnering with you on that and talking to furnishings consumers. Mm-hmm. I want to give Bob a chance now to talk about specifically about the way you can help companies harvest their wood resources in a way that takes care of the forest. And I think you were talking about some of this earlier, Bob, but we had sound problems. Try again. Okay, we seem to still have some sound problems with Bob, so I'm going to I want to give you, Corey, a chance. We're going to come back to you, Bob. But Corey, let's take this opportunity to describe what makes Forest Stewardship Council certification different from some other forest management certifications and forest product certifications. Forest Stewardship Council is recognized as the best. Tell us why.
You know, great question, Susan. It really all comes down to the program's origins and really who's behind the program. FSC grew out of failed government talks back in 1992 to try to tackle the problems of forest deforestation and degradation. And it really came to civil society in the form of progressive companies, environmental activists, many social interests came together and decided that it was time to look at a private non-governmental solution to these problems, and out of those talks back in 1992, 1993 grew an organization called the Forest Stewardship Council, which set the first ever kind of global standard for responsible forest management. So it's these really the three legs of the sustainability stool in the form of environmental, social, and economic interests coming together and defining what responsible forest management is. And so, certainly some balancing of those interests, but setting a very strong bar for what should be recognized in the marketplace. And so, in a way, FSC is really a social contract between those looking for a license to operate at the forest level and throughout the supply chain, and those folks who depend on the forest for their livelihoods and well-being, as well as, of course, the forest ecology and ensuring that that is maintained, if not even enhanced. So. It's we're now coming up on our 20th anniversary, and certainly in our early years, started out relatively modestly, but certainly in the last 5 years, that FSC really has broken out in the marketplace, especially in the pulp and paper industry and in building products. Now, really the new frontiers are furnishings and packaging. We see some great opportunities for leadership in these two sectors and opportunities to differentiate.
Yes, and we as an organization see those opportunities too. So tell us, when a company, you were talking about how much FSC certified forests there is here in North America. One of the things that I tend to think is that here in North America we are relatively responsible citizens and taking relatively good care of our forest resources just because we have pretty good regulations and we're pretty law-abiding, I think. Now, others might disagree. But I do think that there are other parts of the world where there is more problem with enforcement of regulations. So tell us, if you are not producing here in North America, and if you are, and we already know our industry uses materials from all over the world, how is a furniture manufacturer going to find FSC certified material near where they manufacture?
Sure. No, another great question. I mean, I certainly want to maybe touch on that first premise that we're doing pretty well here in North America. I think we tend to agree in a general sense, but we still have our issues here as well. In some geographies more than others, but we still have fairly destructive industrial forestry, both in the U.S. and Canada. And so certification, and especially FSC certification, is a way to distinguish between high quality leadership practices and forest stewardship on the ground, and essentially barely legal forestry, which in some parts of the U.S. and some parts of Canada, where we have laws governing forestry, are often at the state level, almost always at the state level, and in some cases we have very few forestry regulations. So certification is still very important, even in the developed world, in places like North America and Europe. So when it comes to outside these regions, when we're talking about the tropics, you would absolutely agree that if you're not buying certified forest products from these regions, it is so critical to understand that supply chain and understand where exactly your wood is coming from. Certification provides the best guarantee of responsible management, but there are other mechanisms as well to identify the sources. Certainly weed out the worst of the worst. We are, I think, because of the reaching a critical mass in forest certification in places like the U.S. and Europe, where we have a lot of demand for wood products, that critical mass now is beginning to drive growth of and demand for certified forest in the tropics. So that's a really good trend that we see increasing, and it is, I would say, it's largely being led by large American companies. There's some big producers and brands in Europe as well, but they are beginning to send those signals up their supply chains that certified forest products are really critical, and they need to bring the higher volumes of those products into their supply chain. So it's right now the primary mechanism for encouraging that is really working with your start off with your existing manufacturer base and work with them to identify existing sources of certified wood within their sourcing region, and where possible, we feel like it's a great opportunity to work with FSC, work with WWF, the Tropical Forest Foundation, the Forest Trust, and others to bring those that are not certified into certification.
Yes, great. Thank you. And just on the practical detail of how you find certified product, there is a website and there is a marketplace, and I know that you all are in that wonderful process of continuous improvement of websites, but there is a website now where you can go and start to look for certified product.
Yes.
FSC certified product.
Yes. Well, there are actually two websites. There's info.fsc.org, which is our web database for identifying and ensuring that a particular company or organization is certified. And there is also we are in the middle of what I would call a soft launch of marketplace.fsc.org, which is our, as you mentioned, that is our primary mechanism now for connecting suppliers and customers of FSC certified product. And the reason why I mentioned soft launch is because actually just in about 2 weeks' time here, we are going to be communicating with our certificate holder base to essentially fully populate their product profiles on this site so that it can be a functional tool. At this point, right, that isn't the case, but once those profiles are populated, it's probably going to take about 8 to 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. That marketplace tool should be a fantastic one to bring together buyers and sellers of FSC certified product.
Great, thank you. Now, I want to, Corey mentioned the importance of maintaining forests as a diverse ecosystem. So, and I know that is one of the problems in many logging practices in North America as it goes to a monoculture. And so I want to see if we can go back to Bob now, because I know that Bob's can talk to us about responsible logging practices that do give all the life in the forest the best chance of health. Let's try you again, Bob. Do you hear me, Bob? Perhaps you could talk now.
All right, let's see if it holds on for me this time. Well, I was talking. Yeah, I can hear you fine, Susan. Can you hear me? Okay. As I was saying earlier, and Amy and Corey have talked over these same topics. The second thing that we focus on is transparency, and that is making sure that people do understand their supply chain, know where their wood comes from, and we think that that provides a competitive advantage for companies that can say to their customers, we know exactly where this wood came from and we know how it's managed. In regard to the management, Susan, we teach a program called Reduced Impact Logging. And we know that through outside researchers, they've verified that RIL reduces waste by up to 60%. It leaves 96% of the forest intact. It promotes faster recovery of the natural forest. And best of all, for suppliers, it reduces overall cost by 15%. So we encourage companies that if they find that their suppliers are not practicing reduced impact logging, that we can work with them to get the suppliers trained. And this is a series of courses that touch every part of the logging practice, as I mentioned earlier, starting with legality all the way through silviculture to how you treat the forest after the fact. But one of the things that we encourage people to do is know your supplier. And if you're doing projects in the U.S. and you're importing wood, make sure that they know their supply chain all the way back to the forest. And if you're working with people in another country, if you're doing a project in another country, then we encourage you to find a responsible U.S. or European supplier that has a long-term relationship in that country. And that way you could find the best sources and find out how the wood is managed. And we have a short guide on questions you can ask your suppliers, so you can download it from our website, and that's tropicalforestfoundation.org. Corey has covered certification pretty well. One of the things that we focus on is helping people who would like to be certified. Our focus is on improved management. We work with lots of organizations that are pursuing FSC certification, but they need to sell their wood in the meantime, number one, just to be able to afford the training. And so we encourage people not to limit their purchases to certified product, but make sure that they're working with companies that are interested in the long-term management of the forest and constantly working to improve. And the last, I know Amy talked about this, that supporting the economic value of the forest is what keeps the forest intact. Tropical Forest Foundation was started from a workshop at the Smithsonian Institution in 1989, where the first premise that came out of that workshop is that the forest must be accorded economic value if it's to remain standing. So we encourage people to buy forest products because we know, particularly in the tropics, that's what's going to keep the forest there. And we want the forest responsibly managed so that it stays intact for generations to come. And that's what we work on.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Bob. And I'm going to move to Amy now. For Amy, keeping the forest diverse and keeping the economic value of a diverse forest is another thing that World Wildlife is also very, very concerned with, and you're concerned with making sure that your work makes sure that people's needs are met. And I bet you could talk a little bit about how you do that while preserving biodiversity in forest systems. And this sort of goes back to what we were saying earlier in the conversation with Corey, that here in North America, sometimes a forest will be logged and then put all in pine or something, and in the tropics it might be logged and put all in palm oil, and this is losing biodiversity. Tell us why it's so important to preserve that biodiversity and how that biodiverse forest best serves the communities as well as the market.
Sure. Well, about 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity is housed in forests, so they're really important to maintain in terms of their biodiversity value and the ecosystem services that they provide. And we know that forests are important for filtering water, for preventing erosion, for purifying the air, for regulating our climate. And about 1.6 billion people depend directly on the forest for their livelihood. So really maintaining the forest is a matter of life or death for them. And so the FSC standards have very strong social protections. That part of the FSC certification system is very, very strong, and it's one of the reasons why we believe FSC is the only credible forest certification available globally. So, I mean, I think there's a number of different things to touch on here, Susan. So, one of the things that I did want to bring up for the folks who are watching the call is what Bob, and to go back to what Bob was saying about increasing the economic value of the forests. I think it's important. Sometimes people will cite the fact that agriculture is the largest cause of deforestation at present. And while that's true, what happens is that the forests are often logged multiple times for the high-value timber species, which then leads to the assumption that the forests have been degraded to a point where they should just be cleared. And we would disagree with that perspective. And that's why we think forest management is so important. Responsible forest management is so key. One other thing that companies can do is to look at lesser known species, alternatives to species that have been over harvested because of their high market demand, and many of them are threatened with extinction, and there are actually some resources out there that can help companies to identify which species are threatened or endangered, whether it's because they're on the CITES list, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, and there are restrictions on trade of those species, or whether they're listed on the IUCN Red List, and that's a great resource for folks as well online. And we can also help companies to identify which species are of higher concern and should therefore be sourced with more due care and more due diligence. And we also have a great body of work on lesser known species. We've got a guide on our website, gftn.panda.org, a lesser known species guide that does a comparison. Here are some of the species that are commercially in high demand, like the mahoganies or teak, and what some alternative species are and where they're available FSC certified, because again, we want to make sure that those species aren't just the next mahoganies that are going to be over harvested and become scarce. We want to make sure that the forest remains intact and that those species continue to thrive. So we've got those types of resources, and that's a way to add value to the forest. So for example, we're working with a company in Peru that's part of the GFTN Peru program that's looking at promoting 19 alternative species, and that will help them to increase the value of the standing forest. And many of those could be good for furniture as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really, really excites me among the resources that y'all provide. Anybody can go to to go to your website, www.panda.org, right? Is that it? Yes. Go to the
Panda.org, actually. You can find it if you go to
panda.org. And we do have links on our website. It's just I didn't have them in my small head right now. But the links will tell you not only what species to avoid, and of course you can go to CITES for that as well. You can find out what to avoid, but the really important thing is to know what to use instead. And this is very exciting for an industry like the furniture industry that's a fashion industry. We're always looking for what's new, and so using these lesser known species and using the story of the importance of lesser known species can help sell a piece of furniture and help a designer sell it to the project they're specifying. So I want to be sure that we all understand part of the, I'm just going to sort of say a little more about the importance of lesser known species and even in even more lay terms. When a forest is logged for just the few famous woods, everything in the pathway of getting to those famous woods is liable to be knocked down. But when you recognize the value of the various mature trees in that forest and take them out for the purpose that adds the highest value to that specific piece of timber, it keeps the whole forest healthier if you log that selectively. And that is what you were talking about, what you all are talking about doing, and what your program, Bob, your lessons in responsible logging help loggers do, and what the Forest Stewardship Council certification system recognizes is that it has been selective enough that the health of the forest is maintained. So, Amy.
Yeah. No. That's fine. I mean, it's really yes. When those species that are high value, that are in high demand, when they're under a conventional logging scheme, that's when it becomes problematic. And when there's under responsible forest management or the lesser known species, I think you described it well. Anyway, so
okay. Thank you. Good. Well, I know that we are. I'm not getting in questions from our viewers by the mechanism I expected. So viewers, send it in by Google Chat, and we can share it most immediately. But in the meantime, I want. And I think, Bob, that you have comments about concerns on specifying tropical woods. Sometimes people will say, oh, I'm not going to use it at all because it's a tropical hardwood. But Bob, you have taught people who work in forests to log responsibly so that they can tell their customers exactly where this wood comes from, even when they are sort of on, what I would say is on the way to being certified but not yet certified. So would you like to speak a little about that concern that some designers might have about specifying tropical woods?
Well, I think that my colleagues here have made a good case for looking at responsible forest management, and Amy talked a lot about the economic value, and that's really what it comes down to. Is these forests, I think Amy mentioned the leading cause of lost forests is conversion to agriculture. Commercial agriculture for the first time exceeds subsistence agriculture as the cause of lost forests in the tropics, and we know that a forest that's responsibly managed for its economic.
Okay, Bob, we're losing you again. So I'm going to move to Corey. And Corey, one thing I wanted to be sure to ask you, Corey, is about FSC certification of recycled or reclaimed woods, because this is something that's very popular in furniture right now, is to use old wood that comes from an old building, and we do know that sometimes it is fake old wood, and I know that y'all are aware of that too.
Sure. Well, yeah, certainly FSC, its origins are in the certification of natural forests and to a lesser extent plantations. So really virgin wood products, but certainly probably going back about 10, 12 years, both our economic and environmental chambers came to a recognition that FSC certification needed to incorporate and recognize the value of both recycled and reclaimed wood products as well, forest products. So we do have we have a label specifically for recognizing 100% recycled content, as well as recognizing let's say a recycled or reclaimed input into a combination of virgin and recycled content. They're essentially treated equally. So it is important. I think where there are opportunities to better utilize reclaimed wood or forest products, that should be encouraged, and the certification does that. It is a value certainly in the marketplace related to that reclaimed component within a product, is that the certification process at the chain of custody level can provide a guarantee that that product is actually coming from a reclaimed source. So auditors, when they're doing their audit of the companies, they're checking that when a reclaimed or recycled claim is made, that there in fact is something behind that the inputs were coming in to justify that claim. So yeah, we certainly are trying to encourage that wherever possible.
Great, thank you. I want to give each of you a chance now to give us a final takeaway. And I'm going to start with you, Amy, and move down the line here. So let's see. So Amy.
Yes. So as I mentioned, gftn.panda.org, lots of free online resources, trainings on timber legality on the Lacey Act. We've got everything that a company would need to know about developing a responsible wood procurement policy and implementing that policy. And I can summarize our guidance in a few points here. First, it would be to avoid illegal and unsustainable wood. So seeking FSC is the kind of the top recommendation as a way for companies to ensure that the wood is comes from a responsibly managed forest. When FSC is not available, and it's not always going to be available, there are some other things companies can do. For example, if companies are sourcing from a higher risk country, they can get legality verification, and there are a number of organizations that offer that, including the TFF through the Real Verified certification, and then using lesser known species when they're from responsibly managed forests. Also important to ask questions of your suppliers. About, do you know where your wood comes from? How can you demonstrate the legality of the wood in the country where it's being sourced? Do you have chain of custody certification? Are the timber products coming from high-risk geographies? And do you participate in any stepwise programs like GFTN or Smart Step TFF? So with that, I'll just say that please check out our resources. And Susan, if there's a way for people to have the email addresses of me, Bob, and Corey afterwards. That would
Yeah.
be helpful, and people are very welcome to contact me with questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Good. So, Bob, let's see if we can hear from you with and maybe, yeah, let's see if we can hear from you, Bob.
Okay. Well,
Looks like we can't, unfortunately, so I'm going to move over to Corey for you to give us the most important takeaway, and we will
Try to get Bob back. All right.
Yeah, we'll try again on Bob.
Okay, good. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, Amy, I think really you hit it on the head. I think our outreach and request of those participating in the furnishings industry is that you develop a sound policy related to your wood sourcing and weeding the worst of the worst of the inputs from either deforestation or illegal wood products. But moving to higher and higher levels of responsibility in your wood product supply chain is critical. And I think we certainly at FSC would argue that you should set some robust goals and objectives around increasing your levels of certified products, particularly FSC certified products as the leadership standard. And we stand here to work with you. I know GFTN and TFF and others are all capable of working with you to develop those policies and maybe more importantly supporting your achievement related to those policies. So we've got a great team here at FSC in the United States. Based out of Minneapolis, but we've got folks in Virginia and California and Colorado and Washington State all here to help. And FSC.org is our website, and we also have a number of tools there that you can draw upon, but certainly encourage you to reach out to us directly by email or phone. We're here to help. I guess the last thing I just wanted to mention is that that next frontier of reaching out to the consumer is a particularly exciting one. And I can tell you that in the market research that we've done in the past couple years here, it is actually the furniture industry that stands to benefit the most from moving to FSC certification. So it is the single most attractive industry for matching up with FSC. So we're seeing scores in the 71-72% of consumers are heavily influenced by FSC certification on the furniture product, and those are the highest scores of any other industry that uses forest products. So exciting time and a lot of opportunity there.
Yes, indeed. That's a great takeaway for us, Corey. 70-odd% of consumers will be more glad to buy that piece of furniture when it is FSC certified. That's great. I'm going to thank you all. I'm going to give you Bob's takeaways because I think they're the takeaways of all of us. So the first thing to consider when using the wood resources when sourcing wood is first, consider legality. Second, consider transparency. Third, consider forest management. Fourth, sustainablefurnishings.org, and contact me. I'll put you directly in touch with so with that, I'm very